Robert Hur, the special counsel that was looking into then Vice President, but now President Biden's possession of classified documents. Our position is this. Neither one of these cases should have been brought. The case against President Trump certainly should not have been brought because he was president of the United States and had the authority to declassify. Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, did not have the authority to declassify, but we don't think either one, but he's the sitting president of the United States, so you cannot be indicted while you're president of the United States. But I think the biggest issue that has come up on all of this, and we'll get into what the memory issue means and how it plays out, but I think it's important to play for you a question from Darrell Issa to Robert Hur about the status of guilt or innocence of Joe Biden.
I'm going to presume that you would never prosecute someone you thought was outright innocent.
Correct.
In this case, did you reach a conclusion that this man was outright innocent?
That conclusion is not reflected in my report, sir.
Right. So you did not reach that conclusion, or it would have been in your report.
I viewed my task of explaining my decision to the Attorney General as being based on my judgment and my assessment of the evidence. Would a conviction at trial be the probable outcome? And that's
and I just want to make sure the record is complete in that, because I think it's extremely important. You did not reach an idea that he had committed no wrong. You reached a conclusion that you would not prevail at trial and therefore did not take it forward. Is that correct?
Correct, Congressman.
I looked at the evidence in the case. I interviewed Biden. I made a decision that his memory was of such bad quality that it is unlikely I could have gotten a conviction at trial, because a jury would not believe that he, this man Biden, had the intent to commit an act intentionally, willfully, and knowingly. And therefore, because I didn't think I could get a conviction at trial, I declined prosecuting him. That's what he said.
I don't think either one of these cases should go forward. Sitting presidents cannot be prosecuted. We've argued that for President Trump. Same would apply to President Biden. How do you read the takeaway right there on the innocence issue?
Well, I would first state, consistent with Mr. Issa, that Biden did indeed mishandle the documents. He knowingly and intentionally did so, and that Biden was possibly guilty of a criminal charge, and clearly he was not innocent. But instead of bringing the charge, or at least positing that he might be chargeable, the special counsel, Mr. Hur, suggested that Biden put his own memory at issue, and therefore a conviction would be difficult under the circumstances, even though he may have had the intent at the time the misconduct occurred.
So when you listen to what Congressman Jim Jordan said, the chairman of the committee, take a listen.
I think this is interesting, because here's the scary part. Page 200. I said this earlier in my opening statement. Page 200, Joe Biden, this is a quote, Joe Biden risked serious damage to America's national security when he shared information with his ghostwriter. Shared it with his ghostwriter, the guy who was helping Joe Biden get $8 million. And oh, by the way, Mr. Hur, what did that ghostwriter do with the information Joe Biden shared with him on his laptop? What did he do after you were named special counsel?
Chairman, if you're referring to the audio recordings that Mr. Zwanitzer created of his conversations with
exactly
Mr. Biden,
what I'm referring to.
He slid, if I remember correctly, he slid those files into his recycle bin on his computer.
Tried to destroy the evidence, didn't he?
Correct.
Which should have resulted in a separate charge by the special counsel against that individual who was working with the vice president then on his memoir.
Destruction of evidence, obstruction of justice. Here's a person who got classified information given to him by Mr. Biden in exchange for what? He paid him a substantial amount of money to write these memoirs. So he gave it to them. He shared it with them. He put it on his laptop. And what did he do after he got the stuff? He destroyed it. He destroyed evidence. That is indictable conduct, and Hur should have said that.
So if you look at the ghostwriter in particular, it also implicates another very, very important issue, which is, Joe Biden's motivation at the time he mishandled the documents. So at the time he mishandled the documents, he had 8 million reasons to ignore the guardrails governing the handling of classified documents. So Joe Biden was scheduled to earn up to $8 million as an advance on a book that he was writing with the ghostwriter. So he had a motivation. And that suggests to me that he had the requisite intent to violate the law. Having said that, I agree with you that no charges should be brought against Biden or Donald Trump.
This idea that he's got diminished memory now, what does it have to do with the time of the commission of the alleged crime?
Well, that's a good point. And I think Professor Hutchison mentioned that when you commit the crime or the alleged crime, he had the capacity at that time to understand, the willfulness element was present. The knowing and intentional and willfulness element was present. But at the time that he would be charged with the offenses, which is when Hur's investigation has taken place, Hur concluded that he would come across with a bad memory, and therefore a jury would find that he was unable to form the intent at that time. And when you're prosecuting a criminal case, your duty is to find intent, willfulness at the time of the commission of the events. But if the jury will infer that he couldn't have formed that intent to be willfully destructive of documents, then he probably wouldn't get a conviction. And Hur said, I declined to prosecute him because of that. I probably wouldn't get a conviction in the eyes of a jury.
There has been a lot of attention paid to language in the report about the president's memory, so let me say a few words about that. My task was to determine whether the president retained or disclosed national defense information willfully. That means knowingly and with the intent to do something the law forbids. I could not make that determination without assessing the president's state of mind. For that reason, I had to consider the president's memory and overall mental state and how a jury likely would perceive his memory and mental state in a criminal trial. These are the types of issues that prosecutors analyze every day. And because these issues were important to my ultimate decision, I had to include a discussion of them in my report to the Attorney General.
There's no case. I mean, it means that the case would not go to trial with a successful conviction possibility because of the fact that the president's mental capacity at that time to form the intent, not his capacity to commit a crime. That's the standard there is knowing the difference between right and wrong. That's not the point. He didn't say he didn't have mental capacity to commit the crime. What he said is his memory was so bad when I interviewed him that he would be sympathetic, a jury would be sympathetic to him on the basis that he couldn't form willfulness. And you have to show bad intent when you're prosecuting a crime. Hur made the right call, I think.
Hur says I want to prosecute him even if the policy against not prosecuting presidents wasn't in fact the policy. He wouldn't have prosecuted anyways. Then you've got the actual prosecution of President Trump for the exact same issues, retention of documents, where although he was president and had the ability to declassify. Let me be clear about this, and I really think it's important that you understand exactly what our position is. Our position is this, that neither one of these cases should have been brought in the first place, not against Trump, not against Biden, but especially not against Trump. And the fact that they did bring that against Trump shows you the two-tiered system of justice.